Hello and welcome back to my channel, Bookish Lady Night, where we get a look behind the book. Today I am joined by the fabulous international bestseller, Nichole Greene. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So for those of you who do not know about her, she is the author of The Twisted Legacy, the Titans of Founders Ridge, and my personal favorite, the duet series Promise Me Never and Promise You Forever. So her new release, which is coming out tomorrow, which I am in the middle of reading and it is perfect for this time of year, is Holiday Hoax. So if you have not, definitely pre-order it because it is great. I love it. It's so cute. Anyway, but so I just want to let you know about that. So that's a new book release coming out to add to your TBR. So it's so exciting. So how do you feel about having another book out there in the world?
I mean, it's always really fun. Seeing people read my books is always so, gosh, just it's wild, because
Mhm.
I'm sitting here with like these random stories and then people read them and they enjoy them and they're talking about them. I don't know. I'm just forever grateful.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I remember when I finished A Promise Me Never, I wrote you and I was like, oh my golly, it was so good. So I couldn't wait till the next one came out and I was just like sitting there going, when is it going to come? When is it going to come? When is it going to come? Because I was wanting to know what was going to happen next. So you definitely hook us in and then set up a great story. And then sometimes you put us on a cliffhanger, sometimes you don't, but they're really great and they just like pull you out of your world and like drop you in this other realm or other location where you can live in someone else's life for a while. So I really like
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
with writing, for example, that series, where did you get your inspiration?
We were on vacation in Colorado, like driving through the mountains. And, my kids were all quiet in the back of the car. We were just listening to music. And I had like the idea just like dropped in my head, which is how a lot of my ideas come, just like out of nowhere.
Yeah. Do you write them down or do you keep them in your head?
I mean, I have like random files in my notes app on my phone, but
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking, my head is where everything kind of lives. Yeah. Yeah, literally.
That's how I always imagine it when people tell me they keep them in. I'm like, I don't know how you do that. I am very much like Dory. So one minute it's in there and I remember it, and the next minute it's out, and then I hear that from an author where they're like they keep it all in their head, and I'm like, it must look like a filing system to
Yeah.
recall it all
Yeah.
for sure. Well, that's really cool. I actually about 2 years ago went on a road trip and we went through Colorado, and it was just magical. Like the
Mhm.
scenery, the animals, like just the whole. It's so peaceful there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like Colorado is so cool because you get so many different types of ecosystems, right? Because you have like on one side, you've got the super tall Front Range, and then you have the more desert side. The further west you go, don't you know what? Don't get me started on like geography and stuff like that. That's what my degree's in, and I could really talk
Ooh,
about that forever.
um, that's really cool. Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be fun to learn about it and how everything correlates and the transitions between that. I definitely love that about places when they have the multiple areas, and then when you're writing, it gives you like a plethora of things to like work.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'm such a nerd that when we're on vacation, I'm like constantly looking at my phone to like see what, era all of the rocks are from
Mm-hmm.
and when, the landscape was formed.
Oh, that's great. Yes, that's really cool. That's definitely. I'm like that with the trees and like the plants. If I see a flower that's really pretty, I'm like using my phone with that like Discover app to like see what it is and to
Yeah.
like know the name of it because I love that kind of stuff. So I'm totally there with you.
Okay,
So
well that
when you picked the location, obviously most of that is Colorado, but parts of it you made up in the imagination of you within the story.
mhm.
So did you drive by like a bunch of ranches and then that's kind of like how you did it, or did you go home afterwards and do more research?
I went home and did more research, but my brother lives out there. So I'm pretty familiar with Colorado. So it was kind of a combination of the two, I'd say.
So when you are planning out your new stories, do you make like a mood board or like write down goals before you start, or do you just kind of dive in?
No, I just dive in.
So are
I
you more
don't
like a pantser?
Yeah, I'm definitely yeah, definitely a pantser. Yeah. I have tried so hard to plot, but every time I plot, like I just go in a totally different direction.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of that like mental energy gets expelled for something that doesn't end up happening, you know? So I'm just gonna forever, I think, be a pantser.
Mm-hmm. Well, if it works, and it does
Yeah,
because
I
you write
mean,
great stories, so don't
yeah,
change
like
it if it isn't broken.
yeah, like I feel like by the end of the year, I'll have written 20 books. And so if it's working for like it's worked for 20 bucks, like why change it?
Yeah, exactly. So within that, my next question is with all of, the years you've put into it, how do you celebrate your milestones?
It really depends, I think. My kids are getting older, and so they're like paying more attention.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that has been the same is like I will go get donuts the morning of a release. Every like we do that on birthdays, and now like when I release a book, it's just tradition.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a simple way. And I bought myself when I had my first million pages read on Kindle Unlimited, I
Mm-hmm.
bought myself a new purse, but I haven't, since then I haven't really done anything that big.
Yeah, no, the donut thing is great. That's awesome. I love
Yeah, I
that.
mean, my kids love it. It's easier for me too because
Yeah.
release days are chaotic and busy. And so if I can just feed them, sugary donuts for breakfast and send them to school.
And they'll remember that later.
Yeah.
Memory of celebrating, and probably when they get older and they have their milestones of their accomplishments, they'll probably carry on that with
Yeah.
within their lives.
Yeah.
So that's great. So you said you did geography studies, right? You did more of the geographical, that was what you did for your career. What led you to writing? Did you always want to be a writer, or did it just kind of happen?
Yeah. When I started writing when I was 12, I was kind of inspired. This is kind of ridiculous, but
No.
I started writing right around the time that Good Will Hunting came out. Because I was like, "Man, if Ben Affleck and Matt Damon can write a screenplay, why can't I?" And, the whole, like, if boys can do it, so can I thing. So, I think I was a little younger than 12, but I remember 12 is when I took my parents' typewriter, and
Okay.
I wrote this absolutely horrible, like, and that, like, I kept writing through high school. I had a few friends who were older than me who also wrote, and so they were always a really good sounding board for me. And then when I went to college and grad school, I quit reading and I quit writing because I was writing, like college papers. And then I really stopped reading for like reading for fun and writing for fun for about 10 years, I'd say. And then I got back into reading, and that made me think maybe I should try writing again.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So then when you wrote the first one, what did you like want to publish, or did someone read it and say you should publish this, or what was the start?
No, it was really just I was reading a lot of like paranormal romance and reverse harems, and I was like, this is interesting. And I was reading the books and I was thinking, what if the story went this way? And so I just one day woke up and I looked at my husband and I was like, I think I'm going to try to write a book. And he was like, okay, do it. And I think that very first book, which I published under a different pen name, I think that took me like a total of 3 weeks to write. It just like flew out of me. I've never had that experience again. That was definitely a one off, but it came really naturally and it flowed quickly.
So, on average, now when you're writing, what's the length of time usually for you to, from the idea to getting it to the point where you're starting the process to publish it, take?
So I get my ideas usually a year or two in advance. I'd say, like, at any point, I generally am thinking of 4 to 5 different storylines for different books. So, in that way, it takes a couple years, but actually sitting down and writing to publishing usually takes me, like, 3 to 5 months.
Pretty quick turnaround.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's definitely not the fastest. I have a ton of friends that can pump books out much faster. But I think that that is kind of the sweet spot for me where I'm not pushing myself too hard. Especially, I have rheumatoid arthritis. So, since getting that diagnosis, I've really had to slow down quite a bit in terms of publishing. Because my first 2 years, I published 7 books each year. And I've like definitely scaled back to
Yeah.
like now this year I was only gonna do 3 full length and 1 novella, but it's gonna be 5 total books, so 4 full length and then 1 novella.
That's really great. Congratulations. That's a lot of hard work and dedication for sure
Yeah, it
to
is.
do that, especially with kids. Being a mom and that on top of it, that's got to be
Yes.
a lot of juggling, a lot of hats to wear.
Yeah, and my kids are all old enough now that they all have activities. So it's like
So, has there been a moment in your writing career that that really stands out to you of like you were really proud with?
yeah, I feel like I've actually had a lot of those moments, but I think the ones that really like hit me the hardest are when readers reach out to me and tell me that they felt seen by something that I wrote. Like in Reckless Love, the female main character PCOS. And I had so many people reach out to me who have PCOS and they were like, you know, thank you so much for writing a character with that, with like the real struggles that go along with it. And I am a survivor of intimate partner violence. And that's like in a lot of my books. That's part of me that just is like woven throughout all of my work. And so anytime the books that are like heavily influenced by those experiences, anytime I have other survivors reach out to me, that also means so much.
Yeah, and it's probably a cathartic. Even though, like, so I am also a victim of that. And then I also have children who are special needs. So I know a lot of times people are check the trigger warnings, if this is going to trigger you, don't read it. But I usually read them, and that's probably not always the most healthy thing, but I like to read them because then I don't feel so alone.
Yeah, exactly. Because there are so many of us.
Yeah.
Like, for the longest time, I was in like deep denial about what I had been through. And like, if someone can read my book and see their experience and have it validated through what I've written, that's what means the most to me.
Yeah. And I feel like also when people write from like their truth and their background, and then I, as the reader, go and read it, which is why I read them, is because I will get a different perspective, or I will get maybe they talk about afterwards, like the aftercare and like healing. They'll say
Mhm.
they tried something that I maybe have never heard of, and then I get some new way of coping with, like, if I'm triggered by, the PTSD aspect of it, of a different way to cope with that. And I just feel like it, for me, it makes, like you said, makes you feel seen, and it makes you, because being in those kind of relationships, I don't know about you, but like most of the time, that other person is a narcissistic person. So they make it feel like it's you that caused all that
Yeah.
stuff that's happened. And so when you're seeing it and hearing it from another perspective, even though you go through therapy and you heal, there's always that like intrusive little voice at the back of your mind, like that tells you, no, it was your fault. And a lot of the time, reading it and like almost desensitizing that side of the, no, it's not, it wasn't your fault, it was their fault. Like, you know,
Yeah. Absolutely.
so I love reading books like that, because like all of that, and like the ones that include like people who have disabilities. Like, I have a chronic illness, and I live with it daily, and some days I can't get out of bed, and other days I can get out and do a lot of things with my kids, so it just depends.
Yeah.
And having it be more readily available and more open and discussed, it doesn't make the person who has it feel like they need to like apologize or like mouse their way around the sides to avoid it.
Yeah.
So I love
Exactly.
when authors do that, for sure. I think that that's a great way to bring in the real world into our fantasy worlds and
Yeah.
blend them together. Um, so here's just kind of a fun question. What is your favorite beverage or snack to have while you're writing?
Diet Coke, and then either strawberries if they're in season.
Mhm.
That's 100% my favorite snack. But, if they're not in season, I love Twizzlers. So, like, Diet Coke and Twizzlers, that's such a, yeah.
Oh, that's a good, I like that. That's a good combo. So with writing, have you ever done co-writing, or have you ever thought about doing that with like someone who's an author friend?
I have thought about it. I don't know if I would ever do it. I am kind of a control freak especially about my stories. So I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah.
But I love reading other people who co-write. I think it's like so incredible to see stories be so seamless that you can't tell, especially if you know the voice of each author individually
Hmm.
and not being able to tell who wrote what part.
Yeah.
Like that's really fun.
That, and then to try to like figure out, I've interviewed a couple writing duos, and I'm like, who wrote this scene and who wrote that scene, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't tell.
Yeah.
So it's really fun. So does writing energize you, or does it make you tired usually?
It depends, I'd say. The stuff that energizes me is writing the dialogue.
Okay.
And then the part that actually I find very exhausting to write is the spice and the smut. I think because I'm always so worried about the scenes being repetitive to other scenes in the book. So it takes a lot of mental energy to make sure that they're in a different spot and they're in different, positions and the dirty talk's not all the same. That I find very mentally taxing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then probably the like explaining it like in your mind, getting it on the page is that a
Yeah.
process?
Yeah. Well, especially in my Why Choose romances that I write, where, there's like five people in a scene, that can get tricky remembering who's where
Yeah.
and doing what. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that definitely would be like, you have to like lay it out like a football field, like you
Yeah.
go here, you go here, like having it all
Yeah.
planned out.
Or just trying to figure out if positioning is possible. I've
Yeah.
had to ask some of my other author friends or my PA. I'll be like, "Hey, is this physically possible?" And then we're sending each other diagrams and stick figure pictures.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
It definitely makes it fun and like entertaining and light. Like you can laugh and
Yeah.
have that back and forth. That's awesome. So what's your writing kryptonite?
I don't know.
Do you have anything that like derails you when you're writing and like you're in a flow and then all of a sudden something happens and you're just like,
I mean, probably like just my kids interrupting. I don't have like a dedicated office space in my house. I'm like in the dining room. I've taken over for my office. So really it's just my kids, but they're all in school now.
yeah,
So I try not to write when they're home anyways.
yeah,
But that's really, I can't think of anything within the writing process that throws me off.
good. That's good. So do you do like a daily like word count or like I want to get this many scenes or chapters done?
Yeah. So usually what I do, one, I'm forever behind on every deadline I set for myself.
I'm the same way with most things in life, so I get it.
Yeah. Yes. So I found last year that if I get my kids on the bus in the morning and I write from the time they go to school until lunchtime, um, most of the time I can get about 3,000 words written in that time, which is usually like about a chapter, sometimes a little more. And that's good. But I've also had to start really listening to my body
Hmm.
and knowing when I can't physically do that much,
Yeah.
which that's been hard to figure out because I also have to like make sure that I am walking every day and, doing all this stuff to keep my body healthy, having an autoimmune illness. But yeah, and then on weekends, I wake up at 6 in the morning and I go to a coffee shop
Hmm.
and I work until like 8 or 8:30. And I usually get about 3,000 words done that way too.
Some.
That way I can still work, especially if I'm behind.
Yeah. And get out of the house and it might spark different ideas.
Yeah. Yep.
People watch. I love people watching. That's like the best.
Yeah.
So when you're writing, do your characters kind of like take over or do you kind of guide them and they, follow where you want them to go?
That definitely depends. I've had books where the characters really do seem to be in the driver's seat. And then I've had other books where it's just been pretty much me dictating everything. I would say when it came to the Promises duet, that one was probably about 50-50.
Yeah.
Like a lot of Eli's character, she was the one driving it. Like the scene where he picks her up from the bonfire
Hmm.
and like tosses her in the car, that was like all her, getting sick on the side of the road. And then like that definitely came out of nowhere. I wasn't thinking of that at all. It was.
She guided you well in that scene for sure.
She was a really fun FMC to write.
Yeah. I loved her. I thought she was phenomenal and I loved their back and forth and their chemistry
Yeah,
and his whole backstory. I was just like so I really
yeah. I get so much I get so much shit for what he did to her at the end of that first book, but I feel like he did so much growing,
yeah. Yeah.
between the end of the first book and the start of the second book.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I was
I'm
so mad at him at the end of the book, but I knew you were going to go somewhere with it. And I know from like trauma, like a lot of the time that's what somebody will do. So I was like, there's a point to this. There's something's going to happen. But I was like, oh, I was like, you're
no.
awful. But not you. I meant him. I was like,
Yeah,
you're
no, no,
awful.
no.
But I get it. Like you get it when you live through trauma, like you get that other side. So people maybe that who haven't gone through that, they're probably like, what the heck? Like,
For
because we
sure.
haven't been
Yes.
there.
You can see it anytime I have like a TikTok or a reel go viral about that book, I always have people who are like, "Why would you write something like that? That's so terrible." And I'm like, that, life's not black and white. People can still be good and do bad things, especially when they're growing through it. Like, you know, he hadn't ever dealt with what he went through. Like, he was very stuck.
Bastard.
Yeah. He needed he needed to break his own heart in order to like push through, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that the book was, oh, those books, I loved them. I was so excited when the second one came out. I was like, I think I read it in like half a day.
Yeah.
I like, and I did it towards the end of the day, so stayed up till like, I think I stayed up till like 4:30 in the morning to finish it.
Gosh.
Because I like with my kids, like I homeschool them, so I'm with them all the time, and so my time that I usually get to read is either when they're going to like their medical appointments for like their therapies, or at night after they go to bed. So
Yeah.
that is like, I usually stay up way too late. Like I hardly sleep because I'm like, I need to read my books. I need to get in and do my stories because
Yeah.
that's like my escape time. So I fall down the rabbit hole a lot. So have you ever had writer's block?
I think yeah, I'm sure I have. I try really hard to push through it,
Mm-hmm.
even if I know that what I'm going to write is not good. I know I can always go back and fix it, add to it, you know, kind of zhuzh it up so it's
Mm-hmm.
good. Because I do feel like if I let myself wallow in the writer's block, like I'll definitely get up and like walk around and stop for the day. But if I let myself sit there in that kind of like headspace, it'll be even harder like the longer I let it continue.
Yeah. Well, that's good that you like, shift your body, shift your mindset, and then try to push through and
Yeah.
not let it conquer you. So, within writing 20 books now, if you could go back in time and have a time machine and go back in time and see your younger writing self when you started with that first book, would there be anything that you tell yourself knowing what you know now?
I don't think so. Because I feel like even the mistakes that I made were beneficial to my growth, if that makes sense. Like, I read the books that I wrote a long time ago. If I'm looking for content to try to get people reading in my backlist again.
Mm-hmm.
And like obviously rereading my first few books is always like a little cringe inducing. I think most authors feel that way, but I still really love all of the stories I've told and all of the characters that I've created. And even like the hardest moments of doing this as like a full-time career is still so much better than like working any of the jobs I worked in the past. So I really feel like I am happy with the journey I've been on so far. And I
Yeah,
can't think of anything I'd want to change.
that's great. That's really, really great. So, what is the most difficult thing about writing for you?
I think it's like time management is hard for me. Like, that's why finding a schedule that's worked so well has been beneficial for me. And also, like, the pressure that I tend to put on myself. I'm not really type A, but I am a perfectionist. And I know that doesn't really sound like it makes sense, but I can't write my books out of order. Like, I can't write the end before the beginning. And I know a lot of authors can like piece things together. So that might be the hardest because that does get me like I do get hung up.
Until you get through the section to get to the other parts. Yeah, that's really good though. It's good you know that. Like you're not still trying to figure it out. Like you know where you need to be or what you need to work on to move
Yeah.
forward to make it better with your craft.
Yeah.
So then on the flip side, what is your favorite part?
My favorite part. I love at the beginning of a book, just starting like the first 10,000 words is so fun for me. Getting acquainted with my characters and the setting and just like settling into the story. I love that. And
Great.
that like excitement that it generates.
Yeah. Do you pull inspiration from like people around you or your own like past within a scene or character?
I mean, to an extent, not really people. I try to leave people I know out of them. I wouldn't want to ever, anyone, but definitely my own life experiences have come through. Gosh, I'm trying to think. I know there's a few things that have happened to me that I've definitely written into books, just like, you know, but right now I can't think of any as an
Yeah.
example.
You're put on the spot. So, what is your most difficult thing you think about when you think about when you're writing the opposite sex scenes and chapters and things like that?
The spice. I find it so challenging to write a spicy scene from the male POV because, like, I don't know what it feels like to be a man doing that, like,
Yeah.
so I have asked my husband, and he's like, "I don't know." And I'm like, "Well, that's not helpful." But that always just hangs me up
Yeah.
because I'm like, "Is this really how it feels for them?" And then I'll spend like 10 minutes just like my mind wandering.
Yeah. I always give you lots of props when you're writing from the other side because I'm like, because I would not know. I would struggle with that with that um coming up with that and making sure it's authentic and not too like over the top one way or the other way.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think, in general, I have 3 sons and a brother. I don't have any sisters. And a lot of my close friends throughout life have been men.
Hmm.
So I think I've got a pretty good idea of like the way that they see the world and their thought process.
Yeah.
So it is definitely just the spicy scenes because it's not like I'm gonna go ask my
Yeah.
my best friend from high school, "Hey, what does it feel like when you're having sex?" Like, that
Yeah.
would be so weird.
That'd be awkward for sure.
Yeah, like, I so I just wing it and hope that it works.
Yeah. So then on the flip side of that question, what's your favorite scene to write?
My favorite scenes to write are anytime there's, like, good banter going on between usually, like, scenes right before the couple gets together for the first time, like the skinny dipping scene in the Promises duet.
Yeah.
That one was really fun. I mean, really those 2 and their banter beforehand, like, it was
Yes.
just that was so fun to write.
It
Really
was so
right
fun to read.
yeah, like, right from the first page, they had great chemistry. So anytime the chemistry between the characters just, like, pops off the page like that is really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. It brings them to life for sure.
Yeah.
So out of all of your guys, who would you pick as your like favorite book boyfriend? I know that's hard, like it's like picking your child, but is there one that you really love more than the rest?
Yeah, there is. It's Massimo from Under the Same Sky.
Okay.
Yeah, he is that book is super special to me. And if I had to pick a favorite, which is really hard, but if I had to pick a favorite, that's my favorite book that I've written.
Yeah.
But I really did love Luke because he was so flawed and damaged.
Yeah. And rightfully so. I'm not giving anything away, but definitely read that book. Like, it'll gut your heart out, but then she puts it back together. So it's really good. It's very cathartic. It'll
Yeah.
make you cry and make you laugh. So it's a
Yeah.
really good book.
I think those 2 are probably 2 of my favorites. I mean, I love them all though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the ones that stand out the most.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, if I could bring Massimo to life, I would definitely bring him to life.
Yeah. Darn, I wish we could do that. Like have a machine where we can just
Yeah.
type it in and then it
Yeah.
comes to life. So what's your favorite tropes that you write out of the ones that you do? Is there like one that you love to do the most?
Well, I like age gap. I feel like that's pretty obvious because so many of mine are age gaps. And I also really like second chance. Yeah, age gap and second chance.
Yeah. Is there any that you like but that you haven't done yet? Like a trope that you really want to do but you just haven't yet?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I actually don't have any tropes that I dislike.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love angst. I have ideas for a secret baby, like super angsty duet. Um, which that might be one that I do next year. I'm not sure yet. And then also love triangle, cheating, really things that everyone hates.
Yeah. But it happens in the world, so
Yeah, yeah, it does. But definitely the secret baby.
that'll
Yeah.
be a good one. I love that. That's one of my ones I love to read. Or just like surprise pregnancy. Like I love that. I know everybody's like a lot of people are like cringe with that one, but I'm like, I love that one.
I do too. I nothing makes me happier than a surprise pregnancy where then he's like so obsessed while she's pregnant. Like Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. Is that yeah. Oh, God, I love that book.
Yeah. I love that. I just finished one that like and I didn't even know it wasn't even kind of really listed as one of the tropes. And I was already in love with the book and then it was in there and I was like
Yes. Yeah,
so
I
I
love it.
love that. Do you usually know when you're going to write like a plot twist or a cliffhanger? Do you already know that that's coming or are your characters leading you to those and they just kind of happen and you're like, "Whoa."
No, I know. I
Yeah.
always I that as soon as I start writing a book, if I'm gonna put a cliffhanger in, I know that there's gonna be a cliffhanger or a big plot twist. Yeah.
So what is your favorite character to write?
Like, in general or favorite that I have written?
In general, like the ones that you usually really there's no hesitation when you start doing that, like they're like you're ready and you're going with that type of character or that particular character.
Okay. I really love to write, like, characters with a lot of depth and, like, flaws. So, definitely like Luke was, and even Eli to an extent. But also in the book I just released in September, the FMC in that book, her name's Harper. She has a lot of depth, like, and a lot of trauma. I guess I
Mhm.
really like I guess I like trauma, actually, now that I think about it. That I don't know what that says about me,
Um,
but I do love to write characters who have, like, trauma that kind of fuels them.
yeah. It brings them to life more, I feel like, when they have that. Like
Yeah,
it's more relatable to me because I'm all kinds of messed up in my brain from things that have happened to me over the years. So
exactly.
I like to know that I'm not alone in that like
Yes.
neurotic, weird way of being in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it definitely makes you a different person and
Yeah.
you have glimpses of the other person before the trauma, but it kind of all kind of like a Picasso painting. It's all just kind of and then it makes you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that about books. I like that because then they're more relatable. So when you're doing the books and you get to the point where you're doing the cover, do you enjoy that process of designing the cover?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the cover designers I work with are the most incredible people because I will literally just vomit ideas at them and then they come up with these incredible incredible covers. That is a lot of fun to see my ideas coming to life and, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I always love looking at the covers and like with the ones that have like images of the people, like I'm thinking like I see them and then I think of the descriptions and then I see like how they're seen in my mind. I love that because that usually most of the time I take the people that are on the cover and kind of use that as my mind's eye inspiration
Yeah,
for
that's
them.
I actually when I read, I don't like I have aphantasia, so I only see words. I don't like ever have like a movie in my mind of what I'm reading. So that's I always have to use the cover, like the people on the cover if I need to like know what I'm like looking at, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, that does. So, in your opinion, what makes a great story?
I think what makes a great story is characters that you care about. Characters who grow throughout the book or series. I think that's like the more multidimensional a character is, the better the story's going to be.
So, when you're writing characters, do you do like a character profile?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I write in a program called Scrivener, and they have character sketches that you can do. It'll have their role in the story, their age, where they live, what they look like, all the way down to like their outer struggles and their inner struggles. A really long time ago, when I first started writing, I was watching an author, and I can't remember her name. It's Fiona something, and she's British. But she was talking about how when she develops her characters, she always makes sure that she comes up with a lie that they tell themselves about themselves. And that like really stuck with me. And so I always, make sure that there is something that each of my characters believes about themselves that isn't true and that they work through to understand in the book.
Yeah. That's really, I love that
Yeah,
because it makes it, because we all have that. We all have this like belief
exactly.
about ourselves.
Yeah,
I've never
yeah,
thought about that. I love that.
yeah. No, I feel like that that tip has been like the best tip I've ever gotten from another writer.
Yeah. That's a really good, I love that. That's really,
Yeah,
that really gives another dimension or another facet to a
yes.
character for
Yeah.
sure. I love that. So what is the most surprising thing you've learned on your journey?
The most surprising thing, I don't know, I am constantly shocked that, you know, people read my books. Like, I'm I'm always surprised. Like, when people send me pictures and videos of them, like, sobbing because of something I've written, one, I love it. Like, I that fuels me. I'm not gonna lie. I might be evil, but I live for that kind of feedback. Like, just knowing that I'm capable of writing something that people feel on such a visceral level,
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
that's definitely, like, the most surprising thing, and I hope it stays like that forever because it just feels good, you know?
Yeah, you touch someone's life and
Yeah.
you can see it that it's that of being in your story.
Yeah.
So how did the process of publishing your first book to now, have you changed a lot in your process since then?
Oh, yeah, definitely. My first book, like, when I wrote it, as I said, it was kind of on a whim, and I was like I didn't really take it seriously. I didn't think people were gonna read it and love it. So I had my mom who is a retired teacher, she's the one who proofread it. So I didn't even use, like, an actual editor or anything. So I definitely as soon as I realized that people enjoyed my writing, I definitely, like, hired editors and, it's I'd like to think that I do as much as like a traditionally published book at this point with editors and proofreaders and all of that. It's
It's
definitely
I
a lot more in depth.
Yeah, and I feel like for you guys it's a lot more rewarding because you're doing it all. I mean, it's hard work, but it's like a deeper fulfillment. Not to say that the one traditional publishing isn't getting that, but it's like
Yeah.
you are it.
Yeah.
It's really really cool. I give you guys the biggest props and like all of the praise and all of the accolades because it's a hard road for sure.
Yeah.
So when do you read reviews that people post or do you just skip them?
I will read reviews for like as ARC reviews are coming in. I'll look at them. I don't look at anything less than a 3-star review. I feel like if I have questions about something I wrote and I want to see the general consensus,
Mhm.
3 stars are where I go. Like if I'm going to need to correct any of my writing, those are generally the most constructive to read for me.
Yeah.
Definitely not saying that 1 and 2 stars aren't valid because 100% they are. But I feel like the criticisms and critiques in 3-star are the most helpful.
Yeah. And then usually 1 star, 2 stars are probably just they were not the right audience for the book.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the 4 and the 5s, like that, like if I'm having a bad day, I will read my 5-star reviews just to like pump myself back up. But after after the first week of a book being out, I don't generally ever look at reviews.
Yeah. So, what is something that you do that you always are trying to learn to be a better writer, to do things better? Is there something that you do, you like watch videos? Do you read other books by other authors? Do you go to conventions? Like, is there anything that you do to always
Yeah.
be growing?
Yeah. I definitely have gone to a couple conventions, but I think what I do the most is reading. I read anywhere, well, I don't read as much as I used to, obviously, because it's hard to read and write, but reading books, I think, is the greatest thing you can do as a writer in order to help you grow as a writer. Because you can be like, oh, you know, the way that this writer writes descriptions of things is so great, and that could help you or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you see other, like, maybe new vocabulary words you didn't know or didn't think of using, and
Yeah.
that too. So what was your favorite book as a child? Do you recall, was there one that stuck out to you?
I really liked A Wrinkle in Time, and I can't remember the name. There was one, it was like Island of the Dolphins or something. I really liked that one. And then I used to like eat up the Fear Street books.
Yeah.
I read those like as soon as one would come out, I'd be at the bookstore buying one.
Yeah. Those were good.
Yeah.
So what is your love language? Do you know?
I feel like I have two.
Two.
It's words of praise and acts of service.
Yeah. I'm acts of service for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you use that within when you're writing? Do you kind of think about those languages to use with showing for your characters when you're doing the romance?
It depends. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I definitely did while I was writing Holiday Hoax because you can tell what Ian's love language is. It's gift giving and probably acts of service to an extent too.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with that.
Yeah, but I definitely thought about that while I was writing him.
Do you ever interview your characters? Like if you get stuck, like kind of how we're doing?
No, but that's a good idea.
Ooh.
I've never thought about doing that.
Yeah, I talked to another writer and she does like a character interview. She writes like you were talking about where she writes like the different qualities and things like that. But then she'll do like an interview to like make sure she's got them fully fleshed out in her mind. And I was like, that's really cool. I wonder if other authors do. So now I asked because
That
I was
is
just like,
so
I'm curious if
smart.
more do that.
Yeah, no, but I'm gonna start doing that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I thought it was cool. And I was like, I've never asked anyone that. So I was like, I'm going to start asking that because I wonder if more people do that. And I just didn't know.
Yeah, no, that is so smart.
So, what is something quirky or unique about you? A fact that we maybe don't know. And
Well, I'm very much an astrology girl. So I give all of my like I do my characters big 3
mm-hmm,
and I like to make sure that they are compatible with each other. I usually do that in the character sketch. And I also will look at my chart when I'm planning releases
mm-hmm.
to try to release on like sometimes it doesn't work and I just have to, do
Deal with it.
whatever.
Yeah.
But I do try to look for, you know, positive translates in my own chart to line up.
Have you ever heard of numerology?
Yeah.
My mom does numerology. So, like, when I started I have a Etsy shop. I have a small business, and I like have her like with my business name like calculate it like everything that I do. I'm like, can you give me background like, and I use that and the charts to like plan things accordingly. So I just love that you do that. That's so cool.
Yeah, no. The funny thing about numerology is that when I was in my early 20s, I was visiting my friend in LA and we were walking down the boardwalk of Manhattan Beach and this psychic literally reached out of her tent and pulled us in and she said stuff to the 3 of us that like all has come true first of all. But she also asked us each our birthday
Uh-huh.
and she knew that my friend had been born, she called it in the veil, which means that like the amniotic sac hadn't burst when
Yeah.
my son was born. And so she knew that by the numerology, which is crazy. And then she did my birthday and she what did she say? She said something about good fortune for me because I have so many eights in my birthday, or like numbers that add up to 8 because it's 8/24, 1984.
Okay.
Like,
And eight's
so
power,
many.
money, and authority.
Yeah. And so I just thought like I thought that was crazy. I love all of that stuff, like numerology, um, tarot,
Yes, me too.
astrology. Yeah.
All of it. I love it. And crystals, I use those a lot. Like I love all of that.
My desk is covered in crystals.
I have cats, and so I have a cat with a moon, and it's full of crystals, and then I have a dragon on this wall, and it has all my crystals. I
Yeah.
love them. They're all over my house.
Yeah, no, same. My office, my bookcase is all plants, crystals, and books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. That's something that I totally love. I learned something. I love going down the rabbit hole with
Yeah.
authors after I read their book. Like, I want to know everything about them. That's why I started doing this because I wanted to get to know them better and know you better. And so I love that.
Yeah.
So, if you ever had a moment where you're like, it's like, I made it moment, like, you're just like, I'm here, I did it, like, I succeeded in what I set out to do.
Yeah, anytime I'm at a signing and I have, like, a line
Mm-hmm.
of people waiting to, get my autograph or get, books or even just to come say hi to me, like, that just is so it's so wild, like, I had someone at the last signing I went to who brought every single one of my books
Mm-hmm.
and had me sign them. Like,
So cool.
my mom was with me. My mom comes to all of the signings as my assistant,
Yeah.
and she was like, seeing you like sign books that someone else bought and brought for you to
Yeah.
sign is just like incredible.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
ever have the moment like with writing, like, does your mom read your books? Like, are you ever like nervous about like the spicy scenes when?
My mom and my dad read my books. So my mother-in-law has read them. One of my sister-in-laws for sure. And at first I felt weird about it. I didn't really with my mom because she's been reading romance my whole life.
Yeah.
So like it is what it is. I have
Yeah.
4 kids. Like we all know like we're all having sex.
Yeah.
Everyone's doing it. But like it was weird when my dad read them a little bit because he was like we had this really awkward conversation. It's never happened again. But he was like, "Man, I did not think you knew about some of this stuff." And I was like, "Dad, let's stop there.
Let's just pretend that, let's just move on.
We don't need to go any further in this conversation."
Oh, I love that. You could use that in one of your books.
Yeah.
You could use that as a part of your book. So this time of year, do you have a favorite tradition that you do?
Yeah, we have a lot of holiday traditions.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking books in particular or
Or just
like
in general?
in general?
Yeah.
We will go see this Christmas light display that the Parks and Recreation in our city puts on.
Mm-hmm.
We've been doing that every year since the kids were little. We do matching PJs, like matching Christmas jammies. We make gingerbread houses and decorate cookies, all the like,
I love that.
yeah, all the
All the
normal
fun
stuff.
things. So what do you do to unwind after you finish?
I catch up on all of the shows that I haven't watched. And then I also read anything that's in the same like genre. So I read while I'm writing, but I only read sci-fi romance while I'm writing contemporary. So then any books that have come out in contemporary that I want to read, I'll read those. And then I just kind of like rot on the couch for like a couple weeks
Yeah.
if I can.
Yeah.
Since I add since Wicked Devotions turned into a duet this year and I added a book to my publishing schedule, I haven't really had a break since July. I've just been writing and writing. So that's been kind of intense. I'm
Yeah.
definitely hopefully I'll have all of December and part of January off before I start for next year.
What is your favorite type of scene, like for your scenery setting up, like fall, winter? Is there a certain one that you enjoy adding into your books more than others?
Probably fall, I would say. Just because it's my favorite season anyway. Like I love a cold, rainy fall day. It's like
For reading.
exactly, exactly.
Actually, I missed one question. So your plans for your future books will probably start next year, and then are you going to go and do any kind of offshoots with any characters of like the books you wrote this year?
Um I do have an idea for continuing um with the second generation, so all four of Luke and Eli's kids. So
Oh,
it'd
that
be the Heartstone Ranch series. That's what that'll be titled. But I also am switching genres at the
huh?
beginning of the year, and I'm going to be writing a sci-fi romance duology first. Um, so I'm really looking forward to like switching that up. Um, and I don't know if I'll start the Heartstone Ranch series after that or if I'll write the Secret Baby duet first. I'm very much a mood writer, just like I'm a mood reader.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know which will be coming, but all of those will be
Will be
coming.
coming. I'm
Yes.
so excited. I love that. I sign up for your newsletter and I follow you on Instagram because I'm like, what is she coming out with? What is she coming out with? What are we doing next? What are we seeing next? So my last question is, what message do you want readers to take away after reading your book?
I want readers to come away from all of my books knowing that regardless of who they are, they're worthy of being loved fully and out loud by the people in their life. Not just their romantic partner, but their families, their friends. That's really like my main goal.
Thank you so much for coming on today and chatting with me. And
Yeah.
congratulations for Holiday Hoax. It is going to be, by the time that, this video is out in the world, it is live. So if you haven't read it yet, it's perfect for this time of year with the Christmas season. So definitely check it out.
Yes.
And I'll link below her website and Instagram so you can follow her. But please like and subscribe on this channel. And if you have a book bestie that you think would love to read her books, which who wouldn't? They're great. Definitely forward them on. So again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and your writing to speak with me. I am very, very grateful.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, have a good day out there in book world, and I'll see you next time as we get another look behind the book.
Bye.